Four flatmates live together in Wellington, New Zealand. They share chores, they overcome conflict, and they enjoy the nightlife of the city. The only catch? They're vampires, and they feed on the living. In this mockumentary of vampires living together in the big city, the combined talents of Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement come together to provide one of the funniest black comedies in years, 2014's What We Do in the Shadows. I'm Connor Eyzaguirre.
And I'm Austin Johnson.
And this is the last Friday episode of Filmgasm. Welcome to the end of an era, listeners. If you tuned into this past Wednesday's episode on Near Dark, you'll know that this is the last Friday episode for the Filmgasm podcast. We're doing this so we can shift a bit of focus onto launching our new series Oscar Sunday in the next month, maybe sooner. We will still be doing a Filmgasm episode every Wednesday, discussing a different genre film every week like we've been doing. And of course, you can tune into Oscar Sunday every Sunday. Be weird if that was on like a Friday. So, you had said in the Near Dark episode that What We Do in the Shadows is your favorite vampire movie. Is that still accurate?
100%. Yeah, so the day after we recorded that, I watched What We Do in the Shadows again. I had seen it in theaters, and then I saw it, again in my own time, and this is my third time seeing it. And it just escalates exponentially in quality, and how funny it is, how Taika Waititi's career has gone since then, the past 6 years. To look back on that, it's just a genius work from him. I'm a huge Flight of the Conchords fan from HBO, and so Jermaine and Brett have always been, heroes of mine. And Taika actually directed 2 episodes of that show, and so there's just this world of these guys that they're willing to push these buttons that no one else is, and allow themselves to make fun of themselves while doing it. And it's so refreshing. This movie is really, really funny, and it's actually, I think, what struck me this time was how awesome the costumes are, the makeup, the production design, all those things are hitting as well, which is why I think it's so easily rewatchable.
For such a low budget, it accomplishes so much. The special effects are surprisingly really good.
Yeah.
The characters are unforgettable, and it's really it's realistic. That's the weirdest thing. Like, this movie really kind of makes you believe this could work. Like, vampires could just live in New Zealand and have a life. It's strange. It really, I think, the mockumentary style really helps sell that, of course. But yeah. I think the performances are so great that they just make these characters pop.
Yeah. I mean, Taika and Jermaine have I want to see them in more movies, because they have some kind of comedic connection that you just don't see very often, and the fact that they're also doing the writing and the directing, and like you said, to use a $1 million budget and accomplish all of these things and still look like a really nice film, it's just awesome.
Yeah, we were actually, for longtime listeners, we had planned to do this film as the bonus for our Salem's Lot episode back in the day, but we had trouble getting a hold of it in time, so we ended up settling for the Monster Squad. So I think it's oddly fitting that this film ends up being the last Friday episode. It's like it was meant to finally be done on the show,
Yeah. I love that too. That happens a lot here on Filmgasm, where things will just kind of fall into place. And it felt like we called it out back in the past. You had called it out, like, we got to do that. And we wanted to do that. And neither of us had owned it at the time. And it just feels right that we would do my favorite vampire movie, and a movie that I think you hold in the same regard, because you really, really, really like vampire movies, and you've seen way more. You've seen way more than I have. You've gone down that rabbit hole deeper than I have. But Near Dark and this one are just, I find it to be such an interesting week of vampire films for here on Filmgasm, because of how different they are, but how they both accomplish like what I want out of a vampire film, which is atmosphere, tone, allowing it to be funny, which is what We Do in the Shadows does so well, and just costumes and makeup. That's all you need.
Sure. I think both these films are on opposite ends of a spectrum.
Yes.
I feel like Near Dark is like as far as you can go for the dramatic side of a low budget vampire movie, and then What We Do in the Shadows is how far you can get with a black comedy. Exactly. And they both kind of balance each other very well. I think it was a good pick for these two to work together this week.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like you said, yeah, this is it. This is our last Friday one. So yeah, it's gonna be a good film. I if you haven't seen this, Jesus Christ, turn this off. Turn this off. Go check it out. It's only like an hour and 25 minutes or something. Go check it out. Come back because yeah, this is gonna be a lot of fun.
For sure. So What We Do in the Shadows was written and directed by Jermaine Clement and Oscar winner Taika Waititi. Waititi won an Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay last year for Jojo Rabbit, which he also got a producing nomination for, since it was nominated for Best Picture. In addition, he was also nominated for Best Live Action Short Film for his 2004 short Two Cars, One Night, which he shared with Ainsley Gardiner. Waititi took off with What We Do in the Shadows, but it was 2017's Thor Ragnarok that made him a major Hollywood player. He's set to direct the follow-up, Thor Love and Thunder, set for release in 2022, and he's also set to direct a Star Wars film set for release in 2024. So
Finally.
He's become one of the biggest players in Hollywood thanks to Thor, and then Jojo Rabbit got him, Oscar acclaim up the wazoo. So he is straddling the line in the best way. He's got his blockbuster franchises and his indie films, and they're both just excelling. The guy is great.
And that's what you want as fans like us. We want a guy who's like a Swiss Army knife who can just do it all. Who can do anything. He can direct, he can write, he can act. He can do all of these things all at the same time, and those are very special people.
For sure. And I cannot wait to see. I know he's going to do Thor. I know he's going to do Star Wars, but I'm more excited about what he's going to do in between those movies. The little stuff that's going to come out of that.
The next Jojo Rabbit. What's his next out there film that we don't have any source material for? That I'm with you on that. Because I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but Jesus, to me he seems like the perfect guy to take the helm and not take it too seriously, because that's an issue that I think the Star Wars films have had. They take themselves way too seriously and think that they're the greatest gift to film. It's just not true. Look at the MCU, man. Look at the MCU and the understanding they had as it went on of, all right, let's not take ourselves too seriously here. Let's allow the director to direct. And let them use these characters in different ways. It's that simple. And I think that Taika with a Star Wars movie is going to get my ass into that theater. So that's a big deal for fans like myself who are kind of teetering the line of oh man, Star Wars just hasn't been coming through the past 5 years. Aside from Force Awakens, I don't think anything else is like that. It just doesn't really get to me. And I do think Force Awakens is solid, but I would like to see more of that. And I think Taika can bring that to the table. So exciting. But I echo you. I'm with you. I'll always be with you. I want to see what's in his mind. I want to see what his new, written and directed by Taika Waititi, completely original. I can't wait for whatever that is.
Well, also here's hoping that Kathleen Kennedy and Disney lets him put his own style into Star Wars, because they've had issues with that in the past. For Solo, the two guys who did the Lego movie were going to do it, and they had serious clashings with Disney over the tone of the film. They got fired. Ron Howard got put on it and made it kind of a generic Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
There wasn't really any style to it anymore. And I'm worried that they're going to do the same thing to Taika, because that's been Star Wars' thing. You have to stick with the mold or else you can't play ball. The exception has been Jon Favreau's Mandalorian, which fucking rocks because he's allowed to do his own thing with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Disney, at least, Marvel has been, they weren't that great with that at first, but since I would say Winter Soldier, they've kind of let the directors put their own style on it, as long as they played ball with the bigger themes. And that's fine.
Which is okay. I mean, ultimately we go to Star Wars to see Star Wars, to see lightsabers and to see giant ships in the fucking sky. That's why we go. But for me, and you, I think a lot of Star Wars fans who are just kind of tired would love to see something that does have that style that you can point to and be like, that's Taika's Star Wars film, Because you just can't do that with these recent ones. You just can't. They're, like you said, they're kind of, Solo is just man, there's stuff there. You got cool actors there. What are you doing? It's just another generic, okay, just another generic 2 hours of entertainment. I don't know. I mean, I'm worried, of course, because like you said, it's Disney, but I have hope that Taika would take the job only if he has free reins.
Exactly. He doesn't need to do a Star Wars movie.
Hell no.
But if he's given the opportunity, I'm sure he's going to do it his way.
Yeah,
and I just really hope Disney lets him do that.
Yeah, that's very exciting if it's true. Yeah.
For sure. We'll find out in 2024. Jermaine Clement received critical acclaim for his short-lived HBO comedy series Flight of the Conchords, which he co-created and starred in. He received 8 Emmy nominations for his work on that show. He's also appeared in such films as Men in Black 3, Muppets Most Wanted, The BFG, Moana, the Lego Batman movie, and he is scheduled to appear in all of James Cameron's Avatar sequels as Dr. Ian Garvin, whoever that is. Cameron is betting heavily on Avatar 2, 3, 4, and 5. And Jermaine Clement set to appear in all of those.
Jeez.
Jesus Christ. I hope Avatar 2 is a huge bomb because
me too. Me too. I have never I was a fan of that movie the first night I saw it in theaters, and then after that I just kind of like forgot it, and then I saw it again and I was like, this is not good. It's not a good movie.
It's not. It really isn't.
I'm out. Yeah, I'm out. I don't see why I need to go to the theater for that or put any effort into seeing a second one.
The ship has sailed on a franchise for this film. Yeah. I mean, it's been 2009, so it's been 11 years since Avatar came out. Nobody is itching for Avatar 2 anymore, let alone Avatar 5.
Oh, God.
That's ego. Pure and simple, that's ego. I am James Cameron. Everyone wants to see my movies. Because, I mean, why wouldn't he have that ego? Everything he's made has been an enormous success.
Yeah.
He needs a failure to bring him back down to earth. But the first thing I ever saw Jermaine Clement in was Men in Black 3 as Boris the Animal, the bad guy.
Wow.
Yeah. And I thought, this guy's hilarious.
Yeah, he's wonderful. He's been all over the place, man. I mean, Moana, take it or leave it, but that scene is incredible. That song is incredible. And he does all that. He writes his music, and what him and Brett do in Flight of the Conchords is comedic gold. The whole show. And I also would like to point out that Rhys Darby is my favorite part of that show. He's the band manager during the entire show, and he's to me the engine of it. But Jermaine and Brett, there's just this dryness, this understanding of timing that you just don't see very often, and Jermaine has it down to a T.
Rhys Darby is fucking hilarious. That dude is one of the most underrated performers. He's hilarious in this.
Hell yeah, he is. Yeah.
Werewolf pack leader.
he's I saw Yes Man was on TV, and I was like scrolling through and I saw it. And like one of my favorite scenes from that movie. It's not a great movie, but it's got some stuff in it that's funny. And at one point, Rhys Darby's character is talking to Jim Carrey's character, and he's like, puts out his fist, and he's like, oh. And Jim Carrey kind of misses it, like for a fist bump, and he's like, oh, I was just gonna fist you there. So I totally forgot that was in this movie. Oh. And he just, he kind of like just misses, oh. Yeah, God, he's hilarious. And then he has, in that movie also, he hosts a Harry Potter marathon. And they finish Chamber of Secrets, and he's like, all right, all aboard, next stop, Azkaban. He's so funny. My God.
What a nerd. I love it.
Yeah, he is. He's so goofy.
Well, the film was based on the 2005 short film What We Do in the Shadows, Interviews with Some Vampires, which featured the characters of Deacon, Nick, and Stu, as well as Jermaine Clement playing the character of Volvus the Abhorrent. And I haven't seen this short, but I want to find it because that's funny as hell.
Yeah, we definitely need to do some digging and try to find that.
Yeah, I wonder if it's on the Blu-ray I have. I'll have to take a look.
That's a good call. I mean, I want to say, I don't think it'd be like on YouTube. That's probably too rare. You got to like find it, like you said, like a special feature or something. Yeah.
Let's get into the cast. Taika Waititi plays Viago, a well-groomed vampire loosely based on Lestat from Interview with the Vampire. All of the principal characters their style is based off of famous fictional vampires, which I love. I love that.
Yes.
And Viago he's soft-spoken. He's kind of a dork. Like, even in death, he's a dork. And Taika just plays him beautifully. The guy's such an artist; he really can do it all.
Yeah, right from the get-go, when Viago wakes up and he's like, oh, first off, I mean, just the touch of him like coming up out of the coffin and he's like, oh, and can barely, and then finally does it, and just the way he brings you into this world is so easy, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm like, hold my hand, I'm right there with you, Taika. Like, you just he has such a way of being able to do everything, obviously, but just sucking you into his world, and it's so special.
It's so bizarre and weird that you need to know what's going to happen next.
Yes.
All of his movies have had that quality of like, what the fuck is this? But I'm in.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like, it's kind of like the attitude. Like, I think people saw the Jojo Rabbit trailer and they're like, no, I'm good. Or they're like you and I, and we're like, yeah, we're in. Like, let's go see that. Let's go see them fuck with the ridiculous Nazi teachings. Let's do that. Yeah.
I mean, everybody I talked to about that movie, I tried to sell it as, this Nazi youth has a imaginary Hitler best friend, and he's loving being a Nazi. It's hilarious. Let's go see it. And everyone was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, what's wrong with you? Yeah.
How do you sell that movie to anybody?
You can't.
But when you watch it, it's brilliant.
Yeah. You watch when you're in the movie. And Jojo Rabbit is one of those you do have to watch the entire thing to like really understand.
Yeah.
And get inside of that movie because it's genius.
I know somebody pointed out another little Easter egg in that movie. So Ghost Hitler, or Imaginary Hitler, however you want to see him, is constantly offering Jojo cigarettes. Hitler didn't smoke, and he was very anti-cigarettes, which shows that Jojo really knows nothing about Hitler. I love that. Little touches like that. It's brilliant.
Oh, man. That's genius. I obviously didn't catch that. That's awesome.
So great. Jermaine Clement plays Vladislav the Poker, a vampire based off of Gary Oldman's Dracula, loosely. He's easily my favorite vampire of the four. He is hilarious. He's crazy, and he has serious problems with his ex.
He's serious. Yeah.
My favorite little bit is that he can transform into animals, but he can't transform the face. So it's just a cat with his face. So weird. That's great. Johnny Brew plays Deacon, their hot-headed flatmate based loosely on Bela Lugosi's Dracula. Brew would also later appear in an episode of the TV show that came out of the film, but he's also done a lot of work in New Zealand, a lot of stuff I've never heard of, which is with a lot of these guys. This was a New Zealand production, so a lot of these actors came out of New Zealand soap operas or little movies that were made primarily in New Zealand that we've never even fucking heard of, obviously. But, this is an international podcast.
At this point, it is.
We've gone to Japan. We've gone to South Korea. We've gone to New Zealand. We've gone to England many times. That's just, how we roll.
Hell yeah.
Corey Gonzalez McCure plays Nick, the new vampire who the rest of the gang finds insufferable. Gonzalez McCure has written for a handful of New Zealand TV shows, including Wellington Paranormal and 7 Days, the former of which was created by Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi and is a spin-off of this film. So, yeah, cool that he's kind of stayed in their zone as well. What We Do in the Shadows has an IMDb score of 7.7, Rotten Tomatoes score of 96%. It was a modest success, grossing nearly $7 million on a budget of $1.6 million. And it's since garnered critical and fan acclaim as a cult classic. Well deserved.
Yeah, no kidding. I adore this film. I think those numbers just kind of speak for themselves. A movie that only made under $10 million at the theater is able to 96% standing strong after 6 years, and 7.7 on IMDb. As we know, IMDb is very harsh, and they do not give out 8.5s or whatever lightly. So a 7.7 is actually pretty damn good.
Yeah, anything above a 7 is considered really good for them.
Yes.
But even that, this movie didn't really gross that much, but it gave Taika Waititi a career. It spawned a bunch of TV spinoffs. It has kind of started a franchise in a weird way. People just love this movie because it's like nothing else. There's no other film like this.
No, and if you are into the vampire movies and films, this is so rewarding because of the tropes that it kind of, like it's obviously a mockumentary, the tropes it goes over, and like you said, that Viago, Vladislav, and Deacon, they all have these Dracula type, like they're very similar to these certain Draculas that have already been played before. All that stuff is really rewarding as it goes on, and that's kind of stuff that we like already in movies. And so if it's thrown into a mockumentary, it's just very, very cool.
Yes, indeed. So let's dig into the plot of this movie. Hilarious. So from the get-go, we are introduced to this documentary crew who are making a documentary about this undead, or the Unholy Masquerade, this yearly ball for vampires and witches and zombies and other undead creatures. And this documentary follows a group of vampires in the months leading up to this ball, and each member of the crew is given a crucifix and given protection, which makes me wonder, like, who is paying for this? Who sanctioned this documentary? We never find out. We never find out, like, why this is happening, who the hell's paying for this, and I love that.
Yeah.
So we meet Viago first. He comes out of his coffin, Nosferatu style, turns off his alarm clock, goes to open the window to make sure that it's nighttime. He's like, it's the scariest part of the day. And he opens the curtain. Nighttime. So great.
Oh, I love that so much. It's like it's like he's he's 379 years old. So why does he not know that at each time of the day that it is indeed dark? Like, how do you not?
True, but I feel like if you were a vampire and you knew that if you looked at the sun you were gonna burst into flames, you'd be pretty careful.
just in case. Which is why it makes it so funny. Is that and he's like, the relief that he has after seeing that it's nighttime. All right.
He takes the crew through their house to wake up his flatmates. First, he wakes up Deacon, who is sleeping like a bat in a closet. He opens the door and he just goes like they all do that all the time. He tells him, we're going to have a flat meeting in the kitchen in 15 minutes. Like, okay. I'll be there. He goes to talk to Deacon to Vladislav next, and opens the door and it looks like he's having an orgy in there.
Yeah.
He closes the door awkwardly, looks at the camera like, ooh, and then the door opens and Vladislav's like, what? What do you want? He's like, we're having a flat meeting in 15 minutes. He just goes, 20, and closes the door. Oh my! And then for the final flatmate, Viago goes and puts a live chicken in a bag and starts going down into the basement. And we're like, what's about to happen here? He starts talking about his other flatmate, Peter, who is 8,000 years old. And he lives in a stone slab cave. So Viago drags the stone slab away to reveal basically Nosferatu just laying, like, standing there upright, and he touches him and he kind of lashes out. Viago closes the door, throws the chicken in there. It's so fucking weird.
I love, my favorite is that Viago is like, it's, he's like commenting on how dirty it is.
I could bring a broom if you want to sweep up these skeletons.
Oh, I love it. And the sound the chicken makes after Peter gets a hold of it is like, ah! So good. Oh, man.
So they have the flatmate meeting where Viago complains that somebody is not performing their chores, and it's Deacon, who never fucking washes the dishes. He's had dish duty for hundreds of years, and he never washes the dishes. And Vladislav starts talking about that he dragged a body into his room and he looked back and there was no dust, so he kind of dusted the hallway.
Man.
Viago goes to the chore wheel and is like, look, it's been you for dishes for years. Do the dishes. And he's like, I'll do the dishes. And they have like a vampire face-off where they both fly into the air and start like hissing at one another.
I love that when they look at they pan over to all the dishes that are just piled up to like the ceiling, and there's blood all over them. And Viago's like, yes, if we have visitors, like we I'm embarrassed, and he's like, we kill all the visitors anyway. Yes, but I want them to have a good time while they're here.
Somebody got blood all over my antique couch. Oh, the red one? Well, it's red now.
Oh, man.
And then we cut to Deacon washing the dishes, and he just mutters, this is bullshit. And then we cut to the opening credits.
Yeah, and he's like Deacon's, he's the Nazi one, yeah.
Yeah, he's the Nazi.
Nazi vampire? Not good.
We learn about who all these people were before they were vampires. Viago is a 379-year-old dandy who originally traveled to New Zealand in the 1910s to find the love of his life, Catherine, but his servant put the wrong postage on the package, and the trip took 18 months. And by the time he got to New Zealand, his beloved was married, and he didn't want to mess with that. Weird morals for a vampire, but I'll take it.
Pretty depressing when he tells that story.
Yeah, 18 months.
And then it took 18 months, and she was in love and married.
Sad.
Yeah, it really is, yeah.
Vladislav is 862 years old, and he was once a feared murderer, psychopath vampire known as Vladislav the Poker. He used to poke people. And he's obviously supposed to be, Vlad the Impaler, the original Dracula is supposed to be him. But then he had an encounter with his arch nemesis, the Beast, and it broke him, and he's never been the same since. And we find out later who the Beast is, and it's fucking hilarious.
Yes.
Deacon is 183 years old, and he used to be a Nazi. He was he was bitten by Peter after he went to go sell his wares to a creepy castle, and Peter bit him, and he's like, and we've been friends ever since. And Peter's in this like chair, just like it's so goofy. I love it.
Friends ever since.
Yeah, I love what he's talking about his time as a Nazi, and he's like, when the Nazis lost the war, I don't know if you're aware of that, but the Nazis lost that war. And it was really bad to be a Nazi, but it was even worse to be a vampire. And if you were a Nazi vampire, no way.
Oh, yeah. And just, all these things, that are happening, like when you're learning this, and it's like, the documentary style. I love those bits because you got like Deacon, he's like sitting in the chair, like with his leg up, and he's just like a douchebag, but he's like, Nazi vampire, not good. Not a good combination. All those little things that just serve towards each character. Like Vladislav looking like he's having an orgy the first time we see him. It's like, okay, this guy, I know who this guy is. It's just those little things are so genius from Taika.
For sure. And we never learn anything about Peter beyond that he's 8,000 years old and is barely even recognizable as a person anymore. And
is pretty scary. Like actually pretty scary.
There are some moments in this movie that are actually really good horror scenes.
Yes.
We'll get to those. So each night, Viago, Vladislav, and Deacon go out for a night on the town and try to prowl for victims. And I love that they take the bus into town. They're just sitting in the back of the bus. They're trying to get dressed without a mirror, so everyone's like, the other vampires are drawing sketches of them to give them an idea of how they look. I love when Deacon says, being a vampire is very sexy, and then he like gestures to himself, like, see?
Yes, I love that bit.
So they can't get into any clubs because a vampire has to be invited into a place before they can go in there. It's kind of sucks. So nobody will invite them in any bars. So they go to the vampire bar, which is a very sad and depressing place. There's like 4 people in there. A couple of them are dancing. And Deacon's familiar, Jackie, shows up. And a familiar is a human who runs errands for vampires, does their bidding in hopes that one day the vampire will turn them. And we saw this in Blade, so we've talked about this.
Yeah.
And Jackie kind of just picks up his laundry and cleans his house, and it's very clear he's never going to bite her. he's just keeping her around.
Yes.
And she's frustrated because she's losing her youth and she wants to be a vampire.
Immortality, yeah.
And Deacon requests she bring virgins for a dinner party. He's like, one of each would be good. A man, a woman.
one of each would be good. Yes.
There's this one brief bit that had me just dying when they're walking through this city and they're explaining like why they're, we go out every night, and then there's one like hoodie kid just yells out homos. And they stop in their tracks for a second and then just keep walking.
Homos, yeah, I know, yeah, I remember that part. So good. Those little things, yeah, again, you can keep pointing to them. Those little things are placed there on purpose.
Oh, yeah. I bet a good chunk of this movie was improvised.
Yeah.
It just feels like it.
Yeah, I think Taika is like one of those guys who probably has everything written down, and then somewhere in his back pocket, he's like got notes for this is something that could happen in the scene. I think he knows, like you said, I think he's like a rapper is able to freestyle. You know what I mean? Like almost on cue, like all the time with all these things that are just always racking around their brain. I feel like Taika is a director that has his options, and he's gonna take them at free will. It's beautiful to watch.
Yeah, for sure, man. I agree. This guy has a vision, but he lets everyone kind of play with it.
Yeah,
which is the best kind of filmmaker. Anyone who's rigid never really works out, but anybody who lets the actors just kind of flow, you get a great product.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we see that with you and I are one of our favorite all-time directors. Quentin Tarantino is so good at having everything in place, from how the trash can looks to how Samuel L. Jackson is talking, but he loves his actors, loves them, so he allows them to always put their spin on it, and that's huge.
But then on the opposite side of that spectrum, you have the Coen brothers, who are famously anti-improv. Yes. They have everything established the way they want, but their films feel so organic. It's very. I think they're just very talented at what they do. Obviously.
Yeah. I think that's like they just have like an uncanny ability to write. Like
they write the way people talk.
Exactly. That's the best way to put it. Big Lebowski seems like a giant improvised movie, but it's like no. Every single thing is written down.
Every every dude, every fuck, it's in the script.
Yes.
It's so strange to watch that movie and know that they're not just kind of mumbling their way through this. There's a script that's very clearly, this aggression will not stand. Like you have to. It's weird.
It's incredible. And it's it's what makes the key differences in the creators we love. Taika, I feel like, is one of those guys who's going to be doing this for a long time.
Oh yeah, he's just getting started.
He's so special. Yeah. So
then we go to the dinner party, which is maybe my favorite part of the movie. It's pretty ridiculous. So Jackie brings with her a woman who once insulted her in grade school, and her ex-boyfriend from childhood, Nick.
I love Nick.
Nick is such an idiot.
Yeah, he's a moron.
They're not virgins, so Deacon's a little upset at that. But they have a system, and Nick and what's the girl's name? I don't remember the girl's name.
I can't either. Yeah.
They sit down at the table, and Deacon's like, "Would you like biscotti?" It's so weird. And Viago comes out with 2 cans of canned spaghetti and just plops it onto their plates. It's very clear that something bad is about to happen here. They're idiots for not picking up on that.
Oh yeah, my God! Just look, yeah. If someone throws that down on a bowl in front of me, I'm running. Yeah.
And they have a brief segment where they talk about why they like virgin blood, and Vladislav explains it perfectly in one of my favorite movie quotes of all time, where he says, "Imagine if you had a sandwich. You would enjoy it more if you knew nobody had fucked it." Oh boy. It oddly makes sense to me. Yeah, okay, I get it. Virgin blood. All right. So Deacon starts hypnotizing Nick and says, I didn't know you enjoyed eating worms. He makes worms appear on the plate. And Nick kind of is like, oh, there's worms on that plate. He has like no emotions. It's so weird. And Deacon's like, we took that from the Lost Boys, but we put our own spin on it.
Yeah. I love that. God, I love that so much.
He makes his dick look like a snake, and Nick freaks out, like, oh, my dick's a snake. What do I do? And Jackie, I didn't catch this the first time I saw it, but Jackie says to him, no one's going to mistake your dick for a cobra, I promise you.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
this is the most entertaining scene, for sure. God.
So after that, Nick tries to get the hell out of there, and he's like, these people... They spiked my spaghetti, made me think it's worms. They turned my cock into a snake. I don't know what to do. He's just panicked. And he tries to escape, but then they're all coming after him. Yeah. And this is the part that's actually a pretty decent horror bit here, when Nick's trying to escape the house.
Yes.
It's pretty cool.
Yes.
And he opens the door to see Viago biting the girl, but he, like earlier, he keeps fucking up and he keeps getting the vein and just blood spurts everywhere every time.
I love that. And Viago's like, shit, like as if he stubbed his toe.
The first time it happens, he's like covered in blood. He's like, yep, I hit the main artery. So it's a real mess in there. He's got a roll of paper towels, like that's going to do something.
Yeah, I hit one of the main arteries.
Makes you wonder how many times. Does he do this every time? For hundreds of years.
He's just shitty at the actual biting. Yeah. Oh, man.
Oh, God. So Nick tries to run, but the vampires keep coming at him. He opens a door, and Vladislav is in there as a cat with his face. And the freakiest part is when he turns around and Viago comes out of his backpack.
Yes.
That was a shocker.
No, that's incredible horror filmmaking right there.
How did they even do that? The camera's on Nick the whole time.
I don't know.
It's so, impressive special effects, especially in this scene. He throws the backpack and Viago starts climbing out of the backpack, and he just keeps running and keeps running, and they just are around every corner. He gets out the front door and he gets just grabbed by Peter and ripped apart. And they're all like, "Oh, Peter got him." Damn.
Shit.
2 months later, Nick shows up at the house. He's a vampire now. And he's a terrible fucking vampire. He's just flying through the sky. I love him trying to get in the window. It takes 45 seconds of just trying to back through the window into their house.
Yes, yeah. Because and he's talking about flying. He's like, well, that's cool. I've always, I think everybody wants to fly, so I can do that now.
They ask him, why didn't you just come through the front door? He's like, why would I? I'm flying.
Yeah.
And he interrupts Deacon's weird erotic dance.
Yeah, Deacon and Nick right away have that friction.
Oh yeah. The vampires, they accept Nick into their group because he knows the modern world and he is able to get them into cool clubs, and he brings with him his human friend Stu, this computer analyst guy who's just there and questions nothing.
Yeah, the most normal looking guy ever. Yeah.
And that guy is Stu Davenport, I think his name is. No, Stu Rutherford, my mistake. But Stu Rutherford, he was a high school friend of Taika Waititi's who's just in this movie because he's a friend.
That's awesome.
He wasn't supposed to have many lines or even have a substantial part, but Taika edited it in such a way that Stu's a considerable character. And most of the time
awesome.
He's just in the background, not even saying anything, just looking around eh. It's awesome.
Yeah, he's great. It's a wonderful touch, especially at this point in the movie where you're not longing for some kind of human, but it does add to it. It adds to the comedy element that there's now an actual just straight up human hanging out with them.
But I just love that with all the shit that happens, he never once asks any questions.
No.
He's just
Whatever.
And one day, Nick confesses to Stu that he's a vampire, and Stu just kind of like, oh, he's still my mate.
Yeah,
Like, no questions about it. And they all make an agreement not to eat Stu because they like Stu.
Yeah, I like Stu too.
That's great. He teaches them the internet. Viago uses the internet to find Catherine, the woman he lost in the 1910s. She's now 96 years old. She's living in a rest home, and he is like longing outside of her room, just kind of like trying to think of something to say. It's oddly sweet.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if this movie wasn't so silly at times, if you really broke that down for what it is, it's like very romantic and sad. A guy traveling like, through decades and wanting to like rekindle whatever relationship he had with Catherine. And she's almost 100 years old herself. It's really crazy that they threw this in there.
Well, how they all respond to the internet. Like Vladislav loves that on Facebook you can poke people. His immediate reaction is like, wow. Like he looks at Stu like, oh my god. is great. And Viago uses Skype to connect with his old servant Philip, who's this old man now, who is immediately like, Master, you promised to turn me, and now I'm an old man. And Viago just closes the computer. They have they don't give a shit about their familiars. I love it. Nick is struggling as a vampire. He thought it was really cool at first, then he realized he can't eat human food. He vomits a lot in an alleyway after he has like one fry.
Yeah, that scene was sad too, because he's like, I can't even enjoy chips, mate. It's my favorite food. I can't even have them.
That's all he gives a shit about. He didn't care about family, friends. He's like, I can't eat chips.
I can't have my chips, mate. Yeah, so sad.
So every time they go out, he tells everybody that he's a vampire. It's supposed to be this big secret, but he tells everybody he sees, including that guy at the grocery store who like mocked him. So he made like a freaky face at him, scared the shit out of the guy.
Don't lie.
Don't lie to people.
Yeah. Love that. Well, and then when he tells the guy, later he's like, and the guy's like, I'm a vampire hunter.
He's like, fuck off, mate. Don't say that.
So good. So good.
Deacon hates Nick because he thinks Nick's, the new guy who's popular now. He doesn't like that he's got a similar style. And he really hates that he's just revealing vampirism to everybody he meets because it makes him sound cool. And because of this, that vampire hunter breaks into the flat and kills Peter by exposing him to sunlight. Peter bursts into flames. And they're all, very sad about this. And Nick reveals, oh, I know that guy. He's a vampire hunter. And they're like, you what? And they have a meeting to banish him from the flat for at least 6 months. God. The cops show up for a wellness check, and Viago hypnotizes them. And that's a funny scene because the cops keep stumbling into horrific shit and being like, oh my God, you don't have any smoke alarms. And these two cops got their own show, which is pretty cool.
Unbelievable, yeah.
I got to find that show.
Yeah, that I love when he's like, oh, it's highly flammable. There's a dead body right under him.
Well, I love when they're talking about the smoke detectors. Deacon is on the fucking ceiling.
Yeah. Oh, what's this? Oh, it's a highly flammable hazard. Yeah, you should take care of that. Yeah, just have a bit of dialogue about it, and What? Oh my gosh.
And while walking through the park, they run into a pack of werewolves.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And they immediately start some shit with the werewolves. It's like Crips and Bloods. Like they just hate each other. And Rhys Darby is the leader of the werewolves. And he, one of them tells the vampires to fuck off or something. And he goes, hey, we're werewolves, not swearwolves. I want that on a t-shirt. That is
that is a great line.
Oh boy. So yeah, there's friction between the vampires and the werewolves, and some shit almost gets started, but they calm down, they walk away. Months after the banishment, the vampires receive an invitation to the Unholy Masquerade, which is hosted for vampires, zombies, and witches, among other undead creatures. And Vladislav learns that the guest of honor is the Beast. And he becomes despondent and upset and starts like freaking out and doesn't feed for a while. So he looks like this like old man. And he decides not to go. They're going to dress up, and Viago dresses up as Blade, and Deacon says it's offensive. Oh, great.
Genius.
They go to the ball, Viago and Deacon, and they find Nick, who brought Stu, and Jackie, who is now a vampire. Nick turned her, and Deacon tells Nick, pretty rude that you turned my servant. You could have asked first. And we meet the Beast, who is revealed to be Vladislav's ex-girlfriend, Pauline. And he's the only one who calls her the Beast, because she left him.
That's it.
And she's the one who discovers that Stu and the camera crew are human beings and is gonna, wants to eat them. Vladislav shows up and defends them and starts fighting with Pauline's new boyfriend. And Stu comes out of nowhere and impales the boyfriend from the back, and like they all get out of there. But when they get away, they run into the werewolves again. One of the cameramen gets eaten by the werewolf, and Stu is mauled to death. So sad. We lose Stu.
Truly. If Stu's gonna go, it's gotta be getting completely mauled by something. So.
Well, that's what Deacon tells Nick. It's probably the way he would have wanted to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I hope I made you feel better. So the vampires run away. They grieve. And Nick calls them and says he's got a surprise. And he shows up at the flat with Stu, who is alive, and a werewolf. The rest of the werewolves are there too, and they make peace because everybody loves Stu. That's literally the only reason they make peace, because Stu's such a good guy.
Yeah. Stu is what we need here in real life. We need a Stu.
Everybody needs a Stu.
We need a Stu. Yeah, a guy who just brings everything together. Yeah.
Oh, it's great. The pack, they go to visit the vampires, they reconcile, and they all have a good time. And I love Viago starts talking about there was this werewolf smell that permeated the entire apartment for about a half hour, but we opened some windows and got rid of that. Viago goes to visit Catherine, turns her into a vampire, and they get together. She's 96, and he's like, he says, some people will say, why does this 96-year-old going out with a man 4 times her age? They can call me Cradle Snatcher. I don't care. It's sweet that they got together in the end. It's so weird, this movie.
It really is.
There's some post-credit scenes reveal that Vladislav had another affair with Pauline. They had some angry sex. And Jackie has made her husband her familiar. So now she's got a servant that she'll never fuck.
Yes.
And that's what we do in the shadows. There's not really a plot. It's just kind of just watching these vampires go through their day-to-day. It reminds me a lot of This Is Spinal Tap.
Yes.
Kind of mindless, fake documentary. And I think it's brilliant. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's a genius piece of work. I would give it a 9 personally. I think it's as good as you can get for a mockumentary about vampires. It's hilarious. Again, it has moments of like actual fear, of actual horror, and I think, like you said, it's kind of watching like a day in the life with these guys, and yet there is still so many so many moments of Taika and Jermaine and the whole team paying homage to horror and to vampire films and referencing them and calling them out and using their characters to kind of based off I love that. I love the Jermaine Clement. He probably has a fascination with Gary Oldman, and so it's just really cool. It's really cool to see all that stuff, and inside of one movie. That's an hour and 25 minutes. It's just that doesn't come around very often. So I couldn't recommend this movie more.
I love that scene where Deacon and Nick are fighting after Deacon learned that Nick's been telling everybody that he's a vampire, and Nick says something like, I am a vampire, I'm Dracula." And Deacon goes like, "You don't know who the fuck Dracula is." He just gets really offended. It's little things like that you can tell these guys fucking love vampire movies, and they wanted to do something original, and they pulled it off big time.
Hell yeah.
I give this film an 8. I think it's hilarious. Features a decent bit of horror. It's original, and I think upon repeated viewings, this could become a 9 for me.
Yeah, I think it's one that we will always be talking about, especially you and I. I mean, forever. Like we'll be rewatching it forever.
For sure. So there were a number of spin-offs that came out of this one. First up, there's the series Wellington Paranormal, which follows the hapless cops from the film, Officers Minogue and O'Leary, as they investigate paranormal phenomena in the city of Wellington, New Zealand. And it's about to enter its 3rd season, so I got to check this show out.
Yeah, me too. I would love to see everything that's kind of, touched by this.
Taika and Jermaine created that show, and I think they've written a few episodes as well.
Perfect.
Next, there was the American remake series What We Do in the Shadows that airs on FX and Hulu. It follows 3 ancient vampires who live together in Staten Island. It is currently on the tail end of its 2nd season and has been renewed for a 3rd. I'm going to have to check this out, too. I haven't watched the show, but I've heard great things.
Yeah, I've just seen a couple episodes, but I definitely will get on it, especially after doing this episode. I'm just fired up about this whole franchise.
Me too, man. And finally, the spin-off film We're Wolves has been announced. This film will use the same mockumentary style and will focus on the werewolf community in Wellington. No word yet on when it will be released or if the cast will be returning. I hope it does. I want Rhys Darby and his pack to be the main characters.
Yes.
And I'm sure they will. But yeah, that recently was announced, so there hasn't really been any development yet. But yeah, here's hoping. I think it's going to be great. So that is all for this week, listeners. Be sure to check out next week's episode on Aliens, in which Josh may be joining us once again. Thank you for tuning in to Filmgasm twice a week, and just know that this new format doesn't mean a downturn in quality. If anything, focusing on one Filmgasm and one Oscar Sunday will give us enough time and opportunity to make each episode the best we can make it. And we will see you next Wednesday for Aliens, and for the last time, happy Friday.